Om Namah Shivaya children, good morning. So I hope you are clear with the part we learned in the last class. So today let us start with the next part children, which is the compound epithelium. So we learned about the simple epithelium and we learned the different types of simple epithelium, right? So now we will start with the compound epithelium. So simple epithelium, as we studied, it is made up of single layer of cells, but compound epithelium, it is made up of more than one layer, which is called as the multi-layered cells, right? And thus they have a role in secretion and absorption process, right? So they have only very limited role in secretion and absorption process because they are composed of multi-layered cells, right? They are not just single layered cells, they have multi-layer. So the amount of substances which they secrete and absorb is very limited. So they have limited role in secretion and absorption. But you saw in simple epithelium, most of the different types of simple epithelium, they had a main role to play in secretion and absorption, right? But here they have only limited role in secretion and absorption. And what is the main function of this? Their main function is to provide protection against chemical and mechanical stress, right? So any form of mechanical and chemical stresses are being withstood with the help of the compound epithelium. And where can we find this compound epithelium? They cover the dry surface of the skin, the moist surface of buccal cavity, pharynx, inner lining of ducts of salivary glands, and of the pancreatic ducts. So these are the places where we find the compound epithelium, right? So they are made up of multi-layered cells. They have limited role in secretion and absorption, and their function is to protect against chemical and mechanical stresses, right? And where do we find this compound epithelium? They cover the dry surface of the skin, and then the moist surface of buccal cavity, pharynx portion. I hope you know which is the buccal cavity, right? So the inner part of our mouth is the buccal cavity. So it is seen in the moist surface of buccal cavity. In the pharynx portion, pharynx is the below our throat portion, next to the throat portion, we have the pharynx, and then comes the inner lining of ducts of salivary glands. That is, what is inner lining of ducts? That is the salivary glands inner linings duct has this compound epithelium, right? And they, I hope you remember about that glandular epithelium, which produces, they are modification of the columnar or the cuboidal epithelium. So they form the salivary gland and the inner lining of ducts of the salivary gland. Okay, so they will form the salivary gland and the ducts of salivary gland, which means that the part through which the secretions are poured into a particular organ, that inner lining is covered by the compound epithelium, and also the and also the pancreatic ducts, right? So duct is nothing but the substances from pancreas will reach the particular organ through the pancreatic ducts. Okay, so these are the places where we find the compound epithelium. Now let us move on to the next part, children. So in the beginning of this epithelial tissue, we learnt a point like all cells in the epithelium are held together with little intercellular material. I hope you remember about the intercellular matrix which I told you, right? So all these cells in epithelium are held together with little intercellular material, which means that they have very little space in between each of the cell, right? So epithelium is tissue, and we know that tissues are made up of group of cells. So these epithelial cells, in between them, they have very lesser space, right? So they have very little intercellular material, and in nearly all animal tissue, they have some specialized junctions between the epithelial cells. Epithelial cells in a nadakka, there is presence of certain junctions that provide both structural and functional links between its individual cells, right? But individual cells in a nadakka, if it is this think that this is the layer of epithelium, and you see epithelial cells here, right? So this is one epithelial cell and this is another epithelial cell, and as we told, they will have only very little intercellular matrix, and there are places where find certain specialized junctions between these individual cells, അപ്പോൾ ഈ epithelial tissues ഉണ്ടായ സെൽസിൻ്റെ നടുക്ക് we are able to find some specialized junctions, right? And these junctions, they provide structural and functional link between the adjacent cell. അപ്പോൾ ഈ രണ്ട് സെല്ലിൻ്റെ നടുക്കുള്ള structural link ആയിട്ടും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ it is acting as a functional link also between the adjacent cells, right? So that is the function of cell junctions. So we know that epithelial tissues are held together with little intercellular lining. Why is it so? As it is acting as boundary or lining. ഒരു ഓർഗൻ്റെയോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു പർട്ടിക്കുലർ സ്ട്രക്ചറിൻ്റെയോ ബൗണ്ടറി ആയിട്ടോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ലൈനിങ് ആയിട്ടോ ആണ് അത് ആക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സോ ഇഫ് ദർ ഇസ് ലാർജർ സ്പേസസ്, വാട്ട് വിൽ ഹാപ്പൻ? സബ്സ്റ്റൻസസ് വിൽ ഈസിലി മൂവ് ഔട്ട് ഓഫ് ദ epithelial tissue, right? So that should not happen. For that, there are specialized junctions in all animal tissues which will provide both structural and functional link between adjacent cells. So epithelial tissues are made up of epithelial cells, right? So between these cells there are some junctions, specialized junctions which provide structural and functional link between the adjacent cells, right? So there are three types of cell junctions that are found in the epithelium and other tissues, and these three types of junctions are tight junctions, adhering junctions, and gap junctions. So these are the three types of cell junctions which we see in the epithelial tissues, and along with that other tissues have this junctions, right? So what are the three junctions, children? It is tight junction, adhering junction, and gap junctions, right? So let us learn about each of these junctions in detail. Let's see the first one, children, which is the tight junction. You can see in the diagram here the three junctions which is shown in this diagram, children. Let us first see what each of these junctions do and what functions they have in between the epidermal cells. So the first one is tight junction. So this tight junctions, they help to stop substances from leaking across a tissue. So as I said, as the epidermal tissue, as it is acting as boundary or lining, it should not allow all the substances to pass out from it, right? അത് പ്രൊട്ടക്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആ ഒരു പർട്ടിക്കുലർ ഓർഗനോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ഓർഗൻ സിസ്റ്റത്തിലോ എവിടെ wherever we find these tight junctions, they will stop the substances leaking from across a tissue, right? ഒരു ടിഷ്യൂന്ന് സബ്സ്റ്റൻസസ് ലീക്ക് ചെയ്ത് അതിൻ്റെ വേറെ ഭാഗത്തേക്ക് പുറത്തേക്ക് പോകാൻ ഒരിക്കലും ഈ ഒരു എപ്പിത്തീലിയൽ tight junctions will not allow them, right? So you can see here, so these are the tight junctions. So these junctions will not allow the substances from leaking across a tissue, right? So they will not help, they will never allow substances from leaking across a tissue, right? And next is adhering junctions. So these perform cementing to keep neighboring cells together. So we told that they will have only very little space, right? So if they should have very little space, these neighboring cells has to be kept together. So this adhering junctions which you see here, the blue colored part which they have shown, this is adhering junction which perform cementing to keep neighboring cells together. Cementing means they hold them together. Neighboring cells are brought up together with the help of this adhering junctions, right? So you can see the tight junctions here in the uppermost portion of the cell, and here we are able to find the adhering junction, right? So it is seen in different places of the epidermal tissue, children. Everything is not placed in this order. They are placed in different orders in the epithelial tissue, right? So, epithelial cells. Now coming to gap junction, it facilitates the cells to communicate with each other by connecting cytoplasm of adjoining cells for rapid transfer of ions, small molecules and big molecules. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഗ്യാപ്പ് ജംഗ്ഷൻസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആ ഒരു ജംഗ്ഷൻസിൽ ദീസ് വിൽ ഹെൽപ്പ് ഇൻ കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേറ്റിംഗ് വിത്ത് ഈച്ച് അതർ. അപ്പോൾ എന്തിനാണ് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ സഹായിക്കുന്നത്? ദ സൈറ്റോപ്ലാസം ഓഫ് ദ അഡ്ജോയിനിങ് സെൽസ്, അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു സെല്ലിൻ്റെ തൊട്ടടുത്തുള്ള സൈറ്റോപ്ലാസമിൻ്റെ കൂടെ ടു കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേറ്റ് വിത്ത് ദ സൈറ്റോപ്ലാസം, these gap junctions will help. So they facilitate the cell to communicate with each other by connecting cytoplasm. How is each cell connecting? how are they communicating? How are the cells communicating? So see children, this is the epidermal tissue, and epidermal tissue is made up of cells, right? So they have shown 2 cells here. Now ee rendu cells how are they able to communicate? It is with the help of the gap junctions, and this communication happens with the help of cytoplasm of the adjoining cells, right? And you can see it here, the last portion is the gap junction. You can see how this junction is acting as a bridge between 2 cells. So through this bridge substance, they can communicate with the nearby cytoplasm, right? And what is the necessity for them to communicate? Why should they have such communication? It is helping them for rapid transfer of ions, small molecules and big molecules. അപ്പോൾ അവർ തമ്മിൽ ട്രാൻസ്പോർട്ടേഷൻ നടക്കാനാണ് ഈ gap junctions ഉള്ളത്. See, they have shown just the 2 cells of the epidermal tissue. Throughout the epidermal tissue we will be able to find the cell junctions, right? And these cell junctions, they are just not just seen only in the epithelial tissue. It is also seen in different parts of our body. So these junctions, they have many work to do in different parts of our body, right? So here we are learning about epithelial tissue, and they too have this junctions for various purposes. So tight junction is to stop substances from leaking. Adhering junctions, they help in cementing or to keep neighboring cells together. As I said, they have very little intracellular matrix, so they have to keep up these 2 cells, all the cells together, right? For that they need something which connects 2 cells nearby, right? So that is done through the adhering junctions, and then comes the gap junction. So this is acting as a bridge between, or it helps to communicate with each other. Each cell is being communicating with the other cell nearing it by connecting the cytoplasm of adjoining cell. And why do they do this? It is for rapid transfer of substances like small molecules, ions and big molecules. Okay, so now let us move on to the next part, children. Now let us start with the next type of tissue, which is the connective tissue. So we have learned about the epithelial tissue. Now we are going to start with the connective tissue, right? So here this connective tissue, it is a vast tissue which is seen more abundantly and widely distributed in the body of this complex animals like multicellular organism, right? അപ്പോൾ ഈ connective tissue എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് most abundant ആയിട്ടും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ it is widely distributed in the body of the complex animal, right? It is not just kept in 1 or 2 places. It is widely distributed throughout the body of the complex animals, right? And as the name says, what is the meaning of this word called as connective? Connective means it is connecting something, right? So as the name says, they are connective tissues because of their special functions which they do. And what is the special function? They help in linking and supporting other tissues or organs of the body. എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് ആ ഒരു നെയിം വന്നത്? It is because they act as a link and they support other tissues and organs, right? That is why we are calling them as connective tissue. Okay, so this is a more abundant and widely distributed tissue in the complex animal's body, and they are named as connective tissue because they do this work, right? Connection ആണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. പല പാർട്സിനും it is connecting, right? So that is why they got a name. And how do they do this? They will act as a linkage, or it is doing a special function of linking and supporting other tissues and organs, right? And they are ranging from different they are not same, right? So they have various ranges, their appearance, how they are appearing, the form in which they appear, these all differ, right? So they range from soft connective tissues to specialized types, which includes like cartilage, bones and adipose and blood. All these are connective tissues which we have in our body. So they are ranging from soft connective tissue to specialized type also, right? So you will be learning what is the softness and what is this specialized type and all, right? So soft connective tissue means it acts as a we have certain tissues like tendons and ligaments and all, which are soft, which are very soft, which is acting as cushion, and we have structures which are very hard like bone also, right?